Welcome to the Intuition Incubator. I am so excited to have with us Chris Newberry. Chris has been an entrepreneur for his entire career, building new projects and moving on one to the next his whole life. He's built a successful exporting business from the ground up, but what he really loves is creating super cool and unique experiences for people. So currently he's working on an overwater eco resort in Panama, building a consciousness community. Oh my God, get chills just thinking about it. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell us about this consciousness community. Tell us about your spiritual journey and your consciousness journey. Where did it begin?
So actually, you could say my spiritual journey started when I was in high school. I had one day we came into school. I was thinking 11th grade, and Monday morning, and there had been a terrible accident over the weekend. And one of our friends, one of the very well-liked girls in school, had been in a car crash, and they didn't know if she was going to survive. She was in this life and death situation. When I went into my second period class, it was my psychology class, and the teacher told us, hey, everybody, sit down. Today's class is going to be, we're just going to all close our eyes, and we're going to visualize her. And I don't remember her name now, but anyways, we're going to visualize her being happy, healthy, and back in school with us. And we're like, okay, so we'll do that, and we did that, for an hour. He had, 5 other classes that day. So, 30 kids a class, all at 180, 200 kids, basically just meditated on her being okay and back in school with us.
So awesome.
So the next day, come back to school, right? And the news is she has made a miraculous recovery and she's going to be back in school in the next couple of days. And I just knew that it was what we had did.
Oh my God.
I just knew it.
Yeah. Now, where was this and what year was that? Where was this and what year was that?
This would have been, this was Southern California,
okay.
where in Orange County. It would have been
Wow. That's an awesome story. Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
So it changed, I kind of saw the world a little differently. I didn't see it so, so physical, you could say, in a way, there was more to the story. I didn't know exactly what, but it kind of opened my eyes a little bit. Fast forward to when I was 21 years old, I had with a group of alpiners. We trained for a year or more, and then we went to Alaska and we climbed this gigantic mountain called Mount Denali. We days up near Summit Camp. I'd pushed my body, all of us. I'd pushed my body way past what I thought it was physically capable of. It was a full-on mental game of staying sane.
Yeah.
Facing fear. Multiple people had died on the mountain while we were there.
Oh,
there had been multiple deaths. So it was really intense. And I went over. We had just crossed this very dangerous part, this ridge that we had to traverse, and I went over. I was completely exhausted. It was just like there was no resistance left in my body. And I sat down, and it was just like this light beam came in and through my head from wherever through my body and into the mountain.
Wow.
And I was just like, and I was having this experience. I was thinking, wow, there's no barrier between me and all information that exists. Like I can answer any question right now,
Yeah.
But anyways, I had this experience. We ended up finishing climbing the mountain, climbed back down, flew back to Southern California. I was working with this very, very competitive, intense commercial real estate company, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I went in, I told my manager, "Hey, I got to quit. I'm so sorry." And he's like, "Well, you spent all this time training me and blah blah blah. We had these hopes for about." I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I felt really bad, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I had this experience, but I didn't know what it was. Like I knew it had happened to me, but I didn't really know what it was. I tried to explain it to people, and they were like, "Oh, well, you were just oxygen deprived." And well, yes, I was oxygen deprived, but this was different.
Yeah.
This was much more than that, And
before you go on, that experience led to your going in and saying, "I can't do this work anymore," right?
Correct.
And
Yes.
that sounds like a very intuitive decision. That's not
Absolutely.
something that you thought about. It was like you had this experience and then you were like, "I can't do this work anymore."
Oh, before I went to Alaska, I had no inclination of quitting that. Like
Yeah.
I was really proud of that, and I mean, it was, it was just I came back kind of a little different,
Yeah. Instant alignment.
Yes. So I had, like I said, I had the experience. I knew I had it, but I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know what I had connected to. So fast forward again to 2003, approximately, and this movie comes out called "What the Bleep Do We Know?"
Right.
And so I go to the movie theater, get my ticket, walk in, sit down, movie starts, and this movie starts, and I'm watching, and they start talking about the quantum field, and you see, and I'm literally freaking out, like, oh my God, it's like, I get it. I'm like saying this out loud. People are like, "You don't be quiet."
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Like, I know that. Like, I experienced that. It's like, that's what it was. I connected to the field or the quantum, whatever word you want to put on it,
Yeah.
label it, however, but I connected to that. And I would kept going back to that movie. I dragged everybody I could possibly get to go with me to go watch it. I probably watched it 50 times in the theater. And then I got the DVD, of course. And I loved the movie. I loved the personalities in the movie. I really connected with Joe. He was the one that I really liked a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I liked a lot of them a lot, but he was my favorite, you could say,
Mm-hmm.
And so, but anyway, so this movie, it comes and it goes, and it's like, now what? It's like, the movie was enlightening or validating, or I don't even know if those are the right words to use, but it gave me some answers, but it didn't give me any path. What do I do now? With this information, it's like, and I thought, wow, the world's going to change. It's like, now the cat's out. But it didn't. Nothing really changed, And
Right.
so fast forward again, 8 years ago, I had I sold my business, my export business, and I was, what am I going to do now? I'm, reinvent myself or what? So I started going to Tony Robbins events, and I went to all of his events multiple times. I loved this. I loved his events. I loved Tony. It wasn't quite my tribe, it was closer than your normal people on the street, but it wasn't quite my tribe.
The frequency was just off a little bit.
It was off a little bit. It was, I think Tony is actually much more spiritual than he leads on to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes he lets it out. But his market is really more the success, and this and that, and make lots of money, and all those things are great. But it's not, it's kind of like, it just wasn't. Anyways, you'll know where I'm going here in a minute. So in the last event I was at, have you been to a Tony event, Abby?
I haven't. No.
So they're like a rock concert. Like he goes through these blocks of information, and then he gets you up and he gets you dancing, and and it gets your energy going. And so in one of those, we were dancing, and you get to meet, you're making friends with the people around you and stuff. And the gentleman next to me is an optometrist, Dr. Green. And we were dancing. I said, "Tony's awesome, isn't he?" And he goes, "Yeah, Tony's awesome." He goes, "But Joe Dispenza's events are even better." And I just stopped, because I knew exactly who Joe Dispenza was. You couldn't watch
right.
50 times and not know who Joe is, right?
Yeah. Right.
Especially, I just stopped, and I looked at him and says, Joe Dispenza does events? Like, I'd never heard anything else about him more after the movie.
Okay. Yeah.
And so he was just somebody who was interviewed. I thought was really cool on the movie. And then, I never heard about him again. And he says, yeah, he goes, "Dr. Joe's events are amazing." And I'm like, I was like, I couldn't believe it. Oh my God, he does events. So this is like I think it was like February. And then I come back here to Panama, and then boom, COVID hits. Everything shuts down. And so it's not really much to do, but I started, following Joe, like, as videos and on YouTube and different things. And then like November or something, I don't know, I just say, I'm going to go onto his website. I go on his website and this thing pops up, say, hey, Cancun event in February, open for registration. I'm like, wow, cool. I'd sign up for it,
I was there at that event. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was my first one of about 15 15. So and that they sell on like 5 minutes, the
60 seconds sometimes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think COVID was slower, right?
I think that one, well, anyways, the thing is I mogged in right at the right moment. I like to think that was divine, but So, I go to the event and just everything changed. You've been to the events, like, Joe, he takes you through these, he feeds you information.
Yeah.
He moves you through these different processes. He gets you to start becoming more self-aware, and he does it. I love the way he makes jokes. Like he'll say like, oh, you're at the table during lunch, during the event, you're at the table during lunch in the event, and you with a bunch of your new friends, and you realize you're the only one who's complaining.
Right.
And then he laughs, everybody laughs, but it's actually very intentional. It's very intentional to get people to start to recognize their behaviors, look at
observe themselves.
Observe themselves. And so, so you're doing these meditations with people, along with this wonderful group of people who are vibrating to really high states, like it's staff like you and your other staff members, so you're in this super supportive environment. You're doing these, you're exercising your brain, your heart, you're doing these heart opening exercises in, the kaleidoscope healing, by after 3, 4, 5 days of this, I mean, you're vibrating in this incredible place. Your heart is wide open. You love everybody.
Yeah.
You're feeling these deep connections to the people that are around you. And, well, you change,
Yeah.
You change, you rewire. You start to change, you rewire, and then you start to heal. Because when you change, when you're different, you start to heal, and you start to get that coherent energy, vibrating in your body or running through. Or what? Anyways, you're fixing the energy, you could say, to your body.
If you continue and don't go back to your old self once you go home. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's okay. So people ask me, Chris, well, why are you creating this? Well, one of the reasons is, one of the main reasons is that when people go back from the events, it's very challenging when they come back into the old situations, the old situation, relationships, they start pulling us back, pulling that, undoing that rewiring, That's why I like to go to one of his events every 3 or 4 months, at least kind of keep it going. So the idea with the conscious community is a place where people come together who have that same mind, their heart-centered way of looking at the world, and with the intention of continuing to open the heart, to continue to look for those higher vibrational states, to working towards those, and creating, you could say, a lifestyle of that, and doing it in this incredible location. Like when I at the first event, I made this group of friends, and some of them are now investors in the project. And I made this group of friends. And at the time, I was living here in Panama. I had built this really cool overwater villa house. And my intention was to build a boutique overwater villa resort. That was my intention, but it was just a normal resort. And I was showing pictures, of the beautiful location and everything to these new friends I'd met. And like, Chris, you should make this a place for us people from Joe's events that we could go there and be together, you know? And I was thinking, well, that's a dream, but it's not feasible, you know? That's what I was thinking that, you know, when I first presented this to me, and I was like, well, you know, whatever. So I come home, you know, I come home from the event, and just all this weird stuff starts happening. So all the properties around me on this peninsula, I'm on the end of this peninsula, right? 400-acre peninsula. All the properties around us start getting offered to to be sold. You know, I'm like, okay, this is weird. You know, I'm gonna, Joe Sada, he talked about stuff like this.
Yeah. Things just happen in ways you would never even.
I'm like, wow. And then I started, you know, I'm like, a lot of the stuff was, you know, in the motion, like had to have been syncing up before I even went to the event. I'm like, okay, well, I guess in space time, there's no, or I mean, beyond, you know, in the quantum, there's no time. So I guess that could be okay. I'm like, really interesting. So I'm like, okay, so another event comes up, and I'm going to go. And I decide, I say to my mind, okay, I'm going to go to this event, and I'm going to go there with the intention that I'm going to create a community for people who are involved in Joe's work, or that same type of mindset, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to test it, you could say. So I go to the event. This one was in Marco Island, and it was an advanced follow.
Mm-hmm.
And I started talking, you know, hey, I'm going to create a conscious community on this beautiful island, blah, blah, blah. By the end of the event, people were looking for me, and they were, you know, tracking me down. I'm like, okay, this is feasible. I can see people really like this idea. They want to, you know, and so then I come back here, the properties that have been offered to me, I put them all under contract, and then more were being offered to me, like one by one by one. There was ultimately 20 different properties. Now tell me if that's not it. That's like statistically impossible.
Right.
The 20 properties in a row are going to come up for sale. That's just statistically off the charts of being within the realm of normal possibilities.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So anyways, that's, I guess, my spiritual story, you know, where it started and where it's at. It's like, you know, that's in essence, you know, that's you could say what got me to Joe, you know, and to Joe's work, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I have a question, you know, because there's a lot of, you know, particularly when we talk about a Joe events and, you know, the experiences, people have a lot of like, you know, experiences, and it's like off the charts, and a lot of people will see light and they'll really experience what you're talking about, this wholeness and this oneness. And that's all amazing. But we also live in a 3D body, in a 3D world. And so what does this idea of consciousness mean to you? And I have a follow-up question after that.
Well, so I don't know the overall intention of the universe, I guess you could say, but it feels like to me that we are definitely it feels like to me it's multi-layered, but part of it is we're on this learning journey. I think another part of it is of evolution. And really, I think it's you know, kind of, I think it's experimental at the same time. It seems like to me, it's like that the universe is almost learning about itself or evolving itself, and we are going along with it. And we're part of that. Each one of us is part of that evolution. That's, if you were going to, you know, I say that not as an expert.
Yeah, right. I mean, who knows, right? I don't any of us know, right? But here's a question, you know, like when we think of consciousness, we think of being awake, right? And when we're having some of these really euphoric experiences, which are amazing, you can actually, there's a way to be having that and still have a blind spot where you're not really conscious of the way that you might be behaving in your day-to-day life, the way that you might be acting, or you might be making choices that aren't in alignment with like the one that you made when you were like, you didn't even think about it. It was just like, like it was just, there was no thinking involved. So where do you feel like, well, I have two questions really. How do you keep people awake? Are you building that into your consciousness community where they're awake in the sense that we are constantly being confronted with our automatic programs, with the ways that we naturally fall into when we have the memories of everything that, our brain is a memory bank, and our experience enriches our brain, right? Is what Joe teaches us. And so those can be very hard to overcome, these habits of thought and emotion that turn into action. I'm curious, your consciousness community sounds like amazing. I totally want to come. Sounds like nirvana. What is how do we, in that beautiful setting, also really continue to be confronted with the areas of growth that as individuals we may need to be living out I know God knows I have mine, in this earthly journey.
Okay. I love the question. Actually, there's a few questions there, but I feel like awake, the word awake is more of, it's not a question of being asleep or awake in our lives, although I think it's more of at what level. And I think awakening is something that continues to go. Like, I don't know, I know that they say enlightenment is like a place to get. I'm not sure if enlightenment is a place you get to and then that's it. I think
No.
I think it's an ongoing evolution. Like, kind of back to what we were talking to a moment ago. So I think like the way I look at it is it's really fun and interesting to become more awake, to become more conscious, or more, have a better level of understanding, or being a better player of the video game that we're in, learning the rules, learning becoming more skilled at it. It is exciting. It's fun. And so like the community, it's like, we'll have, there'll be daily, meditations, where as a group we come together. There'll be walking meditations, doing yoga, content discussions, where people will be talking about different things and, interacting about that. There'll be a wellness center, which will also, be, it'll have like the different energetic type of modalities, that people can, be interacting or have as resources, so, and then, fun activities, great, foods, like natural, like most of the food, like I'm in my house right now over the water, and most of my food I buy out here on my front dock. I buy it from the indigenous tribe, my neighbors here, and they come by in their canoes and they sell me crabs and lobsters.
Oh my God.
They're fresh. I mean, they're like alive, fresh,
oh my God.
Fruits and vegetables. I mean, it's all, of course, it's organic, and fresh. And all of that, I think, all of that assists or assists the way of living of where our we're really allowing our energies, because it's, we're all energy, because you're right. We know that shows the best, right? We're energy. It's like, if we're eating really good foods, if we're interacting with other light beings in our life, if we're becoming more and more self-aware, and we're surrounded by, with people who are supportive of us and that, and we are of them, and we have these, deep connections, of, really heart and living a really heart-centered way, all of those things come together, and I believe can create like super consciousness, or maybe, no, that's not, I don't like that, because that sounds like a destiny. Let's call it really evolution, but evolving at a pace that's fun and exciting, where it's not like, oh yeah, you're stuck for a long time. And then you finally get and you make some movement or whatever. It's like, okay, that's great. Then you're stuck again, but one where it's really, flowing, a really flowing life, So,
So
the place is incredible.
Is this a place where people will come like for periods of time, and drop in and out type of thing? Or is it a place where people are going to live?
Okay. Some people want to live here full time, have their house here, they live here. Some people want to live here part time. They love their life wherever they're from, but they would love to come and spend, 2, 3, 4 months at a time here. And so like so we're going to create an option with our villas that people can do like fractional ownership, like 4 people can come in and be partners and just trade time during the year, but we're also going to have a hospitality, which would be like a hotel, like a spiritual destination hotel where people can come for a short term, a week or 2.
Nice.
And, we're going to have another thing. We're going to have a conscious school. We have this beautiful lady, Virginie, who wants to create this school because we want families to come as well, and even with the families that come for vacation, that even while they're here for a week or 2, that their kids can go and hang out with the other kids in the conscious school. Imagine that interaction, that, exchange of energy and ideas, and we also like our indigenous tribe neighbors. They're beautiful people. They live off they live from the sea and from the land, and I mean, they don't live much different than they did 500 years ago when Christopher Columbus showed up. I mean,
right.
So they're very connected to the earth and to the ocean. And so, but we would like to also we're going to have a foundation, a nonprofit foundation. So we want to be creating scholarships for some of their kids so they can also attend the conscious school. So, I went off about some tangents there, but,
No, your excitement is, it's so exciting what you're doing and what you're creating and how it's all kind of coming together naturally. How do you think that intuition fits in to connecting to this higher consciousness and to this source?
Trust.
For
me,
more.
Yeah, for me, it's that's been the biggest challenge. And I think, like I look back in my life, is where there's been times I feel like I've been very intuitive, and there's been times where I feel like I wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's probably not that I wasn't intuitive. I just didn't trust my intuition. I think.
Can you give us an example of a time that you remember that when you look back on now, you're like, I knew intuitively that I should or shouldn't have, but you did?
Well, I mean, I named one, when I came back from the mountain.
That's when you acted on it.
It was so clear. It was so, but it was so clear. I think sometimes intuition is maybe not so clear. Sometimes it's less, and or maybe it's us. Maybe we're not at, kind of at that place. Like when I'm at a Joe event, I feel super intuitive, and when I'm after the event for, a couple of months, I'm just super, super intuitive.
Yes.
So I think
it's our disconnection, right? I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not that you weren't intuitive. It's that we get disconnected, right, from that intuition. And so and I think we all have those moments. Like God knows I have them when I can look back and say, gosh, like you had one that you shared that you really moved with your intuition. But then there are so many, that so many of us can reflect on that was like, I knew I didn't have the money to buy that house. I knew that was, and I did it anyway because I wanted blah, 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 or whatever. Right. And in hindsight, we only see it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. But it sounds like a lot of your career has been intuitive. It's been really like things have unfolded and you had these experiences so young in life that you had a reason to trust from an early age. Like there was always that resisting force to just the regular 3D, what everybody tells you all the time, because you had this seed planted so young, and a couple of them. Is that accurate?
Well, it's accurate, but I didn't always trust on it. I allowed the outside world in conditioning to pull me back, you know? So it's been kind of like this, back, tug of war, you could say a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think is so common. What would you like to tell our viewers? Like, what do you want them to know more than anything about intuition, about this journey, about consciousness, about how to live in this way that you're trying to create a community where you can feel like that, like all the time? What do you want to say to the people that don't trust?
Well, okay. To answer that, I'm going to go back for a second to when I told you that I'd mentioned that I went to Tony's events and it wasn't quite my tribe.
Yeah.
And when I went to Joe's event, I immediately knew that this is my tribe. Like it was, and I think that it's just, I imagine a lot of your viewers are people who are in Joe's events, so they probably in some ways know what I'm going to say, but that it's just okay to let go and forget about the conditioning and all that stuff, the outside world that, that you should this and you should that. And that it's just okay to let it go. It's like, it really doesn't freaking matter. It's like, it's okay just to be ourselves. And it's okay just to live a life that like we really want to live. Who cares if everybody thinks it's nuts or this or that or whatever? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered the question or not, but
No. And, I have a large audience that hasn't been to Joe events, so doesn't know much about it, but I like what you're saying. I think, a lot of what you're pointing to is like disidentifying with our personality that says we have to be this way or we have to be that way. And the other thing I love about what you're saying is another passion of mine, which is, we grow up in this fictitious idea of some kind of hierarchy, like these people who create these successes are better than these people. And I'm good if I do that. And I'm less than if I do this. And we're constantly comparing ourselves to each other. And that is like such a direct road to clipping off your intuition, which I feel like is the God within. It is the source within. It is what you're connecting with, when you're in that space. So I love that advice. Yeah. That you can be whoever. You don't have to get so attached to what's happening in the machine, of your mind, that's saying you've got to do this or you've got to do that or all of those things. It's easier said than done, right? Like it's easy when we're flying high, right? But when you haven't experienced this world, it's a lot more challenging, I think.
Well, yes, it's easier said than done. It takes some trust and faith and letting go, but it's just so much opens up when you do.
Yeah. It's such a relief, right?
It is a relief, but and it's like the world is so much more than what we thought. There's so much more.
So much more, right?
It's, and don't get me started on that one.
Yeah. Well, but even just what you're doing, it's like, if I just looked at what you were doing, like just out of my little 3D eyes, with my trained, conditioned mind, I'd be like, wow, like that's so, and I still am this way. Like, wow, this is amazing. And like, what courage, to just go off and do this. Like this guy, this is amazing. Right. But you connected with something that you instantly saw. There's so much more than our limited mind could ever dream of. So probably for you, it's kind of like, well, yeah, I'm just going to choose that potential in the field. And I'll just start moving in that direction, because you saw it all. You saw everything. Right. And then it was. Right. It challenges this old Newtonian idea of, we always think I'll believe it when I see it. No. You see it to believe it. Right. Like that's how the quantum works. And that's what you've done. You saw it and now it is. It's amazing.
We still get lots of learning lessons though.
Oh, I'm sure. Right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, thank you so much. I'm really honored that you came and spent time with us. It's amazing what you're doing. Where can viewers find you? What do you want them to know? Where do you want to send them? I will put it all in the show notes, but share, please, anything you want people to know.
Okay. The one of the biggest things I would like people to know is that this is a creative cooperation. But I have a bunch of beautiful people who are working with us, and I'm with open arms, letting your community know if they want to be involved to contact me or contact Natalie or Kirsty. We have people who are working. We have an equity exchange program where people can come in and help out and be involved in the project, and they actually earn an interest in the project for doing that. So this is it's a co-creation.
Yeah.
Many different beautiful souls, and that's what we want. That's what I want to let everybody know. We have a website. It's tainuare.com, TAINUARE.com. So go check it out. There's lots of cool stuff on there. Can I share one thing with you real quick?
Of course. Yes, please.
So do we have limited time?
We're good. We're good. Share away.
Okay. So, because I first have to tell a little story first to really make sense. So, years ago, I watched this documentary about it was these scientists, and they were studying this group of monkeys, and they'd been studying it for years, and it was a very hierarchical, very kind of violent society. Yeah. The alpha males were very, very, very mean and aggressive to the females, the beta males, and the young ones.
Yeah,
and it's just and they thought that that's just the way these monkeys are. These kind of monkeys are this way. That's kind of their from their scientific perspective. Well, nearby there's a town of villagers, and they would throw out their extra food out in the trash pile. Well, and that food was kind of, to the monkeys, that was like a delicacy, the human food. And so with what I've told you already, I'm sure you could guess who got to go eat the good food, right? That the
aggressors.
It would be the aggressor. The alpha males would go down and eat the food. Well, somehow, I don't even remember how, but one day the food that got thrown out was poisoned for some reason. I don't remember what it was, but it was poisoned. So guess who went down and ate the poisoned food? The alpha males. They ate the food and they all died.
Wow.
And so what was left was the beta males, the females, and the young ones. And it was so interesting, amazing, is that the society of this monkey tribe completely changed. Everybody was nice to each other. They were friendly, loving. And if one of them started to act alpha, they would gang up on that one and put them down in their place.
Wow.
They were like, you're not going back to that. No, thank you. And so it was interesting that event changed the society of that, the culture, the society of that monkey tribe. So, okay, so we're creating on this beautiful peninsula. It's a beautiful peninsula. We've got these incredible rainforests, giant trees, cliffs going down in the ocean, these magnificent coral reefs, monkeys, sloths, toucans, parrots. All kinds of beautiful, amazing animals and stuff. But anyways, what we're creating here on this beautiful location is a place of healing.
Yeah.
Where people are coming, because spiritual growth and healing in some ways are the same thing, or they're part of the same equation. Yeah. We're creating this. So I have this beautiful friend, Dorothy, and she has the animal rescue center up in Boquete, which is this place up in the mountain. Animals that have been injured, monkeys and sloth. Anyway, so the different animals that have been injured, she rehabilitates them and gets them ready to release them back into the wild. Mm. She's been releasing her peninsula because it's safe for them. There's no predatory animals, and nobody's allowed to hunt here on the peninsula. And so even though these animals aren't quite as strong as, or whatever, they're safe here. They're safe to continue to heal. So we're gonna create these canopy walks that that go through that canopy, and we're gonna have tree villas up in the canopy, and feeding stations and this. Imagine we're gonna create a different culture between wild animals and humans.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to train our humans.
Yes, that's exactly right. Oh my God, yeah.
But imagine this, they're going to be able to go up and interact with these animals who've been healed by humans. So they're already, even though they're wild, indigenous, animals, but they've already have a connection with people.
Yeah.
And then the other ones that haven't been necessarily are going to see that, because animals are actually very curious of humans. They're just afraid. They're curious on one level, but on the other, are they going to hunt me? So
yeah, and they're super intuitive too. Super intuitive. My son used to ride horses like therapeutically, and this woman who was a therapist with horses, she was telling me about how she's got a kid, and he showed up one day, and the horse wouldn't let him on. And she was like, that's weird. And so she brought the kid to another horse, and that horse wouldn't let him on. And she was like, that is so strange. And 5 minutes later, the kid had a seizure. The horse knew before anybody else what was happening, right?
So animals are super intuitive. And like after I started going to Joe's events and meditating a lot, I noticed animals would interact with me. I had a wild deer follow me like a quarter of a mile back to my parents' house. Follow me like 20 feet, a wild animal, a wild deer. She followed me. Couldn't even believe it. Back to, my house, when I built my house, I intentionally created habitat for fish underneath the house and in front. And then I put these buoys around the house. It's absolutely incredible the amount of fish that live underneath and around my house. It's unbelievable. Thousands and thousands of fish.
Oh my gosh.
It's absolutely unbelievable. And it's just from this intentional, creating this environment, where they're safe, where they have habitat, and where they can, and it's an amazing example of where, usually when humans and the environment come together, it's usually not good for the environment.
Right. Right.
It's usually that's the reality, right? In our history. Right?
Yeah.
So this is a situation where humans came in with the environment. We created something that was incredible for the environment, for the fish population. We created like a fish hatchery almost here in this little area. And so the idea is to continue to do those type of things. So to create this magical place where, humans come in and work.
Yeah.
Anyways, I had to say,
thank you for giving me. It's amazing. But it brings up one last question, if you don't mind. Do you ever have a bad day?
I have really challenging days sometimes. Yes.
Yeah. Even in nirvana, right?
Yeah. Well, so what I'm learning is how to be in really challenging situations and still have my heart open and still be happy, even though I'm really challenged. And so I have not mastered that.
What have you tried that's worked? What have you tried that's worked? Because it's such a great topic that we all need to know.
No, keeping it open and focusing on like the things that are really important to me that I'm working on, which is in some ways you could call it visualization, but it's a little more than that. It's more of connecting to, I do have the visualizing it, but it's also connecting with my heart open. That really helps me to stay steady when I'm in really, really difficult, or challenging. I like the word challenging better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that helps me become stronger in some ways. But I think in the spirit of evolution, of us evolving, I think that when we do that, it's kind of like our problems get bigger.
How so? Because it's like the universe is like, oh, you can handle this now.
I think so. I think it's yes. I really think it's like Now we can still learn to take them more gracefully, more in stride. But they do. We get tested at bigger ways. I really think so.
And that means it's good news, right? The bigger test we get, it's like, oh, I'm evolving.
I don't think that maybe, I don't know. I am no expert. I'm not sure if the goal is ever that it's all going to be just wonderful and easy. Right. I think that we're just going to be becoming better, more evolved, more skilled, more loving, more wisdom, more,
yes.
Intelligent,
Yes.
And I think that, situations, are kind of inspire us,
they give us our opportunity, right? They give us our opportunity that when you have the perspective that everything can be turned into a gift or opportunity, shorten the refractory period, accept what it is, and then seek the opportunity, right? It's easier said, but it's a path, right?
It is. Another, Ugapi, what's his name? Michael Bernard Beckworth. He said something about, I really like him, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I didn't remember his name. Yeah, I love him too. He's awesome. So he talked about something about Kensho and Satori, which is two different ways to learn. Yeah. That we can either kind of learn through this long, dragged out, kicking and screaming kind of a process.
Right.
Which we learn. We evolve and learn, regardless. Or we can do it in a more graceful way, or more, coming more from our intuition and more, so I do think that there is definitely a part of around that, but I do think that we definitely get more and more challenged at higher and higher levels.
Yeah. And, it's this human addiction to suffering, right? Like, and this idea that I was just having this conversation with my 14-year-old because he was really pissed that he found out he had an all-day band practice and it was going to cut into everything. And he was just, literally having a fit. And, ultimately it was like, how are you going to make sure that this isn't any more painful than it already is? Like, what are you going to do to stop creating extra suffering on top of it all? Right?
Yes.
So I think that's a great point.
I think that's a good word, suffering. I think that we can be really challenged. We can be really challenged without necessarily suffering.
Yes. And what causes us to suffer? Our mind. The stories we're telling in our mind. That's it. That's it, because otherwise it just what is. It's suffering when it's like, oh my God, this is awful. Believe me, I'm from Jewish descent. Things can be terrible, but that's all something that, we put on it. So, but we're trained for it. So, I'm a heavyweight in it,
I don't think you're exclusive in that club.
No, maybe not. Well, this has been super fun. Before we wrap, is there anything else you want to share with us? When are you opening? When are you open for business? When do you see this happening? And what else do you want to share before we close?
So we're open now for collaboration.
You are okay for collaboration.
We absolutely welcome collaboration. So we're in the, so we acquired all those properties in a very short amount of time that we need to go through the titling process, which actually took us a couple of years. So there was a long, space of really paperwork, you could say, moving all of that stuff through. At the time it was the Kensho part, not the Satori. It seemed like, but looking back, actually, we really learned how to work with this government. We learned how to, we made all kinds of political connections and friends, in high places, you could say. And so it ended up being a super valuable experience in the long run.
Yep.
So now we're working on the master planning and the design, the architectural design. So we have a couple incredible architects that we're working with. One's from Panama City, another one from Argentina. And so we're gonna be in that process for a while, probably 4 or 5, 6 months. Also doing our environmental impact studies, engineering, like go on and on.
Yeah.
So
Maybe in a while.
and then, so I'm thinking now we were hoping to be able to actually start offering, villas to people first quarter next year. I'm not sure if we're going to make that yet. It might be second quarter, so we'll see, So,
well, keep us posted. Yeah. Keep us posted. And listeners, I'm going to have all the show notes here. If you want to get involved, you know where to find Chris. He has amassed a huge community. I mean, talk about a guy that can create a following and inspire. I highly recommend that you engage. And if you liked this episode, subscribe, share the wisdom that you got from here. One of the things we talk about a lot is we're getting smarter as a society, but we're not getting necessarily any wiser. This community is all about getting wisdom. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. And we can't wait to hear.
Thank you, Abby. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you and I can connect more. Please come down and visit. We'd love to see you. I know that you and Patty are friends, and I know Patty's planning on coming down at some point soon. So maybe you can.
I'll come with her. Yeah, for sure.